Alright, Jared Randall here with some more news from not so far north. Out and about early in the morning here. It's a beautiful morning. I don't know if you can see the sunshine hitting me there. Little sunshine kisses. And it's well, the energies are swirling. The energies are swirling right now. As a lot of fallout is happening after this election in the United States. And it doesn't matter if you were tapped into that or not. You may feel the energy swirling anyway, because so many people were tapped into it and had very strong feelings and had given so much energy to it. And that's a whole other message that will be not for today, but put a pin in that one. In terms of, we hear a lot about people talking about don't give your power away, don't give your power away, don't give your power away to somebody else or to something else, and so on. Well, the problem is we are always giving energy to something. We are energy, we're energy in motion, and we can't not use that energy. We are expending energy always, and we are directing that energy always. So it's not so much a question of who you're giving your power to, it's some more about what are you giving your energy to. And we had a lot of people giving energy to this whole election cycle, and most of it comes down to two different sides, right? But there are there with a couple of more than a couple, but some independent type candidates, and a lot of people were giving energy to all that. And depending on where you fall around that, some people obviously are there. The energy they were already channeling into the side that won, they're now channeling that into that side still, and will continue to do so, many of them. And those who were against that side are gonna find different places to put that energy. Some of them will be channeling their energy against the side that won. Some of them will be channeling their energies in other directions completely. So there's a lot of every day may feel very different when you wake up. Even times of the day, like you may, if you're outdoors, you can almost feel it. I work outdoors these days, and you can feel it happen. Just a bird will call, the wind will blow a certain way, and there's just this huge shift of energy, and you can just kind of feel it kind of rippling back and forth. So, and all this ties in a lot too with what's going on with the solar cycle that energizes things. So in any case, that's not what this message is. It's not the main part of this message, but it was a little note because it is in the air, and again, news from not so far north. So that's some of the spiritual news right now. So going to go back to this concept in the spiritual community of healing and healing work. And you get this, they haven't done their healing work, sort of very kind of arrogant way of looking at other people, in my opinion, showing that maybe we're not so healed, right? Because that's a very I'm up on my pedestal kind of way of looking at things. That's often how you see it. Not always, but it is very often. And that points to something that the spiritual community is doing, which is fetishizing healing. And what we need to really do is understand what healing is. And there's not really many people talking about that. There's all kinds of talk about how to heal, and that usually ties you to somebody's ideas about healing, and very often so that they can get you to buy things from them or buy services from them. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in you actually healing, and also when you're healed, to feel satisfied with healing, to move on from healing, because we can just get stuck in this cycle of healing. And what we need to do is understand what that even means. And it goes back to the body, okay? When you cut yourself, when you wound yourself, and your body's bleeding, healing is the process of your body closing that wound up, right? You bleed out. There's a process. There's a whole process. The blood cleans the wound, right? When we take an emotional wound, it's very important to bleed out through the wound. That's what our emotions are. When we feel that rush of emotions, that's why it's so important to not bottle up emotions, right? Let the emotions out. Let them go out through the wound. It cleans the wound, okay? And then we go through a process of that wound being sore, feeling pain, and that wound closing up. There are itchy stages. There are, sort of achy stages. There are all kinds of stages of wounds healing, right? We know this from our physical bodies. It's the same way with our emotions, with our spirit, right? With our identity, our minds, right? We take different types of wounds, psychic wounds, emotional wounds, spiritual wounds, if you will. I'm kind of tying those together here in this, the emotional and the spiritual, as far as like our spirit body, our energetic body, right? Our mind is our identity, our self-identity, also our groundedness in past identities, past lives, the identities of our ancestors, the people we come from, some that we know of and some that we don't, right? There are wounds that happen in those places, those spaces of our lives, as well as bodily wounds. And some of these other wounds definitely impact the body, right? We take wounds that are psychic, mind wounds, or that are emotional, spiritual wounds, and we do feel them in our body. That's because this life is a very grounded life, okay? When you're incarnated into a human body in this 3D, 4D world, you are in a physical vessel, and it bears the marks of these things, okay? Well, the healing of these other types of wounds is not that different. We go through all the same stages as in a physical wound. It might look different, but by analogy, it's the same thing, right? It's the same thing. And so important here is to realize that healing is a process and that it has an end point. It has an end point. It has, you won't be able to see it, but I'm not flipping you off here. I have a little scar that's on my knuckle there. You probably will not be able to see it. It's a very important scar for me. When I received it, it was an important time in my life. I learned a lot of important lessons. When I see that scar, I remember that lesson. I remember all the lessons around it. But it's healed, okay? It's healed. It's a scar now. I don't need to heal it anymore. It's all done. I've healed that. My body healed that. It took me a lot longer to heal the psychic wounds around it, the emotional, spiritual wounds around what happened. But it's healed. And it's possible to re-injure, right? But don't re-injure for the point of healing again. And that's what some of us are doing. We're doing a lot of re-healing of things. And sometimes that is necessary, don't get me wrong. But sometimes we're just so stuck in the healing mode, we're so used to the act of, the process of healing, we start to like that too much. We start to want to stay in that energy, stay in that space, stay in that process. And one of the reasons is when you start doing spiritual work, it feels good to heal that stuff. You start to feel better. And so you're like, I want to do more of that. I want to do more of that. And that's not all bad. But there comes a point when that's all we're doing. And there's more to it. It's time to move on. It's time to do other things. And so that's what this message is really about for some of us, we're just stuck in this healing cycle and trying to find more and more and more things to heal. And is that a wound? Is that a wound? Is that a wound? Is that a wound? And what that ends up doing is it kind of puts us, well, think about somebody who's always going to the doctor going, hey doc, is this a problem? Is this a problem? We call that hypochondriac, right? It's a certain frame of mind in which we're just kind of getting almost a frame of mind of fear, right? Or a frame of mind that's a little bit frantic. And it's in itself not a healthy frame of mind. And it's something that needs to be overcome when one is in that, right? And maybe it needs to be constantly overcome for some folks who are in that, and that's fine. We all have our own different struggles. But the point is, we have to do that work, and then move on from it. Move on from the healing work. And so the next kind of stage of this is to think about, okay, well, what is healing for then? Well, if I hurt my leg and I can't walk very well, I need my leg to heal so that I can walk. I'm not able to walk. Well, maybe in a spiritual sense, you've healed your leg. Well, great. What for? Well, so you can walk, so you can move. Where do you need to move? Where do you need to go next? That's the question. So there's different ways of looking at this, obviously, and that's the main message here. So just not get stuck in that cycle of healing. It's not to say that everyone is done healing, quote unquote. There is this flip side of this, right? Folks who are like, well, I've done my healing, as if it's all done, which is a sort of like different aspect of fetishizing the healing. I've already done it all. It's completely done. I don't ever have to do it again. Well, that's also not how it works, right? We go through the world. Now our legs are working. We can walk. Our arms are strengthened. We can work. And we start doing things, and we get some nicks and some cuts and some scrapes along the way. And there's some healing work to do. But hopefully it's not a big deal, right? Those little nicks and scrapes and cuts aren't so bad. They heal in a day or two. And we move on. We don't get stuck in that process, right? We don't get stuck in the healing. And so it's about balance, and most things spiritual are. It's about balance. It's about realizing that there's not either or. It's always both. It's always both and. It's always a bit of this and a bit of that. When we get into a only this or an only that, and a never this and never that, that's usually a sign, especially for those of us who are called to do spiritual work, called to do light work, to do energy work. I just have a deer run out in front of me. Always a confirmation. It happens to me so often when I'm doing these messages. So do the process. Learn to recognize when you have a wound that needs healing. If you leave it, obviously, it's going to be bad. So you need to do that healing work. But don't get stuck in it. Don't get stuck in it. And when you're done with it, think about, look at that wound. Look at the scar. Think about what it was. Think about what it is now. How amazing it is that you can heal. I mean, just think about how amazing it is that our bodies can heal themselves. That's kind of amazing. It's kind of huge. And I think we don't treat it with sort of enough amazement sometimes of what we're able to do without really anyone else, right? We're able to heal ourselves. Sometimes we need help. Sometimes we need medicines and salves and creams and all kinds of things to help our healing. But, we're able to do a lot. So, anyway, that's most of this message, I think. Seems to be kind of drawn down to where I'm repeating myself. So, I'm going to leave it there. So, I think it's a good time, though, to take stock of where we're at, the healing work that we've done, and, you know, any healing work we still need to do. But also, again, just recognize that maybe I don't, you know what, that's fine. That doesn't hurt anymore. I'm going to leave that alone now and move on from it. Allow it to fade. You know, a scar is something that you don't think about all the time, right? You're not feeling it constantly. You know, maybe when it's a new scar you do, but over time, less and less, right? It comes up less and less. It doesn't need to come up, but then occasionally it will, and it will remind you of something that you need to be reminded of, and it'll happen when it needs to happen, that reminder. So kind of let yourself be at peace. Let yourself be at peace. Let yourself kind of get to that point of, okay, hey, I'm here now, right? And again, where we really want to get to is a place where we're really in the moment, when we're in the now moment, when we're in the present all the time. We're really in the present all the time. And it's not to say that we can't dip out of the present. We do that. We dip out of the present sometimes, and you know, dip back into other spaces. Sometimes we dip into the past. Sometimes we look forward to the future, and that's good. But we need to, by and large, be living in this present moment, in this now. So, and grounded in this now moment, grounded in our bodies as they are, in the landscape that we're in, with the people we're around. So, for some of us, it's not so much healing work that needs to be done as it is cord cutting work. What are you tied to that's keeping you from where you need to be, from who you need to be, and so on. All right, so I'm going to leave it there. For reals this time, sending you love and peace and all the light you can stand right now.